Welcome back to the Irish Mags Show. It is episode 79. Lads, we're pushing the 80s club. Who would have thought we'd get this far? My name is Paul. I'll be your host for today. And I am joined by the Tranquillo Barnetta to your Bass Dust. If those names ring a bell, they're for very negative reasons. Because it is a transfer show today. But of course, hello, Krisho. And hello, Alan. How are you doing, lads? Good to have you back.
I'm good, but I'm going to take offense to that because I show up most weeks. Him, on the other hand, he's definitely Tranquillo Barnetta or Bass Dust. He's never here. So,
I have, people to meet in Newcastle and stories to bring you. So sometimes I need to nick off. I was helping Paul Mitchell clean up his house. He was telling me who we're going to buy and who he fell out with Eddie over and the reason why he lost his job. So I've got some real scoops here. And I mean, guys, once in a while I need to pop off and hang out with these clowns and then bring it back into the podcast. So
sounds
you're
like
welcome.
on the scoops already.
Oh, hang on. You're welcome.
Well, look, if one of you is Bass Dust and the other is Tranquillo Barnetta, then I think I'm the Hamza Shooterai of the group. The one that we never should have even been looking at in the first place. Not even the one that got away. No, he might be available now. He didn't get promoted with Sheffield United, but good God, if it gets to that, it really, really fucking shouldn't. We are going to talk about transfers today. We're going to be looking mainly at some of the rumored targets that are rumored and linked with the club. It is silly season, of course. We're also going to have a little chat about some players that are rumored to be on the way out. And we want to hear what you think, listeners and Irish Mag. So let us know in all of the comments. Who would you like to sign most? And it is still early in the window. We're not going to be panicking like many others, are we, lads? But before we get into the panic stations, I do have to tell you the Irish Mags are proudly sponsored by Flagman Ireland, who specialise in quality digitally printed personalised flags, bunting, tablecloths, table flags and hand wavers. Their online store, which is flagsireland.com, also stocks and sells a wide range of international and domestic flags, including the heavy woven government standard Irish tricolour and the Irish Mags flag, which, Krisho, I've heard, because in the absence of meetups and games, I've heard you've just been sleeping under that flag. Is that true?
Yes.
You've just decided to. Okay.
It works very well as a hammock. I just pop it across on the Dart or on the Lewis. People are not happy with that, but whatever.
Hey, look, we did say they're heavy woven. They must be heavy woven if you're hammocking them on the Lewis and on the Dart. Good God, fair play. I don't think that's what they were designed for at all. No. Listeners, we do not recommend using your Irish Mags flags as hammocks.
But it will. Look at next season when we're all in Europe and so on and everything else. Anyone's looking for me, I'm going to be hammocked somewhere, half asleep at 3 a.m. in a German city.
As long as it's not a banana hammock, we'll all be very happy. That's the first and last time I'm ever using that phrase on the podcast. I really, really, really hope. Right, let's move on to much, hopefully, cheerier topics, or at least more interesting and intriguing and imaginative topics, because I'm already imagining the banana hammock. We're going to talk about transfers, lads. It is, I think for us, we haven't really done a whole lot on transfers yet. And I think rightly so. We've had this silly little Club World Cup mini window thing happening. And then, of course, we move on to the PSR window. And then we move into the actual window. So with 3 transfer windows in one fucking summer. There's just no need for it. So and I think the big message...
We can sign someone, right? We can sign someone.
The window is currently closed. For the next
first
5
window
days.
Is already closed for a few days, and then
we can sign someone, but we just can't register them or something like that, right?
Yeah, technically.
You could agree a deal technically, and then they wouldn't join until X date. That next window is
I think
open.
It is
16th of June. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all gone a bit silly, political. There's just too much going on, overcomplicating it. But I think the main message is, Eddie Howe has come out obviously and said we want to do business early. It is still early. Players are on holidays. Even if we signed a player today, he probably wouldn't come to see us until he comes back from his holidays. So I don't think there's much point in panicking. For Eddie, I think, and for everyone, an early signing is the player is here to start pre-season. Yeah. Or in the worst case scenario, and I don't know if this has been announced, lads, actually, if there's a training camp, for example, you'd like to have all your new signings on a training camp.
We're off to Hong Kong, aren't we?
Is it Hong Kong for the camp? Okay, we're not going to Europe again or Germany. Okay.
I did hear we are going back to that Adidas, the German football HQ thing. We're going back there for a week, but that hasn't been confirmed yet. I think the blog said that.
Okay.
NUFCblog.com, I think.
Krisho, next time you're lying under a table in the Newcastle boardrooms or in the castle that they like to go and fraternize in, just keep your ears open. on that news. So we're going to look at transfer rumors, lads. We do have a little list of players here, and we'll shout out nufc.com, not nufc.co.uk or newcastleunited.com, which is the official Newcastle website URLs. But this is nufc.com, which I suppose a fan site, for want of a better phrase. Alan, you know this site very well. Most people know it very well.
It's the best Newcastle website going. If you're looking for any information about Newcastle United, this is where you go. But unless you're going for tickets or a jersey, you go to our real website. But if you want anything else, you go to this website because it's just a million times better and a million times easier to use.
Yes.
Because the Newcastle official website is not the handiest for navigating, shall we say.
No, and it definitely doesn't have a list of basically what nufc.com do. They have a rumors page under the links drop-down menu. And basically, they're just tracking. They're not pushing links. They're not ITKing or anything. They're just tracking players that are rumored to join or leave Newcastle. And then they usually shout the source if there's a specific one or if it's multiple. They just say it's multiple. And from what I can see for June 2025, and we're only 11 days in, I can see 15, maybe 18. What is it? 1, 2, 3. 15 to 18 players linked on here. I think we won't shout them all, but we'll definitely go through most of them. There's a few random ones, maybe some young players as well. I think the very first place to start, though, Alan, would be a couple of names that are Premier League players. And as soon as we start looking at Premier League players, everybody starts to kind of ask a lot of questions. Why are we so stubborn? Why are we only looking at players that everybody else knows about and wants? And because they're already in the Premier League, they are proven, they cost more. And then when we see how much that the other clubs want, we go, oh no, that's too much. That is a surface level, I suppose, reaction and emotion. But we're not going to talk about Brian Mbeumo today. For all intents and purposes, we believe he could be Man United bound, or at least wants to go there. The wages are being talked about. So we'll put a pin in that for now. Again, I don't think anybody would complain or be adverse to a U-turn if he was to come. But for now, we'll put a pin in that. Two other big names on the Premier League, though, Alan, in that kind of position are Anthony Elanga and João Pedro. Both of whom are linked with Newcastle. Pedro also, I believe, has been linked with a couple of other clubs. I think even Arsenal, which kind of is a strange
Chelsea and Arsenal.
Everybody we're linked with Chelsea is going to go after.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you, Alan, the more realistic one in your opinion, in terms of not so much who you would like to see or who would fit in better, but who do you think we're actually truly looking at here of the two? Or are we looking at both?
I think we might be looking at both of them, but if you were to tell me one of them that I think would be more likely to happen, it would be João Pedro, because he had a bit of a falling out with Hertzler at Brighton at the end of last season, and he had more than a bit of a falling out with Van Hecke. He had a digging match with Van Hecke in training. But that's what leads me to believe that it mightn't be the best of fits, because as we all know, we have our no dickhead test that doesn't sound like he passed with flying colours, but we all said the same thing about Anthony Gordon when we signed him. He's a bad egg. He's this, he's that, he's the other. I really like him. He's a good player. Like 10 goals, 6 assists, now 5 penalties last season. But like he is not a striker, but he's not a striker, if you know what I mean. He can play anywhere across the attacking trio. He can play left wing, right wing, in behind Isak, is where I'd want him to play more than anywhere else. But
yeah.
Graham Bailey has said today that he wouldn't be adverse to playing on the right wing, which is kind of where I'd see him playing for us if he did come to us. It's an awful lot of money for a player who's not a specialist in his position, and I have been banging the drum for the last season or so saying we need to stop signing utility players and sign out-and-out specialised players for these positions. He's not a right winger. He's not a striker. He's not
what is he,
number 10. Exactly. What is he? He's a fucking mystery. He's a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to the attacking line. And not that I don't want that. Obviously, I do want someone with his clear talent. You don't get into the Brazil squad being untalented. Let's be very, very honest about this. But I would kind of rather someone with a bit more specialised in his right wing. But come here. If Eddie says he wants him, I listen to Eddie. Eddie's forgotten more this week than I know about football. So
yeah, I mean, this is the thing, Al. Eddie Howe wants him. He wanted him 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago. he was watching him when he was at Brighton. He wants him start of the summer. Bad egg, bit of a bad attitude. He's only 23. He was going out with a 15-year-old. Okay, let's move past that. That's allowed in Brazil, I think. But
he was only 19 when he done that. I'm not condoning it, but it's fucking odd.
No, neither am I. Look,
Kaká likes this, and Hulk was going out with his cousin. So that's enough Brazilian politics for now.
But but I think Bruno and Joelinton would maybe get a hold of this fella and welcome him up to the Northeast and kind of set them down a little bit. Bruno's a family man. Joelinton's a family man. Pedro is, gone out with his family. But it's they'll maybe get a hold of him and get him to bed down and settle down in the Northeast. Under the coaching of Eddie Howe, I think he knows he's going to become a better player. And I think, like Al said, he's kind of burnt a bridge or shit on his own doorstep in Brighton. So it's maybe time for him to go somewhere else. Do I think he wanted to come to us, right? 2 seasons ago. He definitely did, right? So I do think that's still there to work with Eddie Howe. The fact that there's 2 Brazilians up there, I think that the only thing I worry about the whole thing, frankly, is where does he play? I think on the right, like Al said, but he can play up front when Isak is getting rotated. Or Isak goes out to the right and he plays up front. Whatever way they want to work it, right? But the only other thing is essentially the fee. The fee is astronomical. And I think Brighton are going to hang on because they're pretty good at getting good fees for people. So £70 million is, whoa.
We will not go that high. I firmly believe we can get him for £50 million. He has said if he's been told he's surplus to requirements, which he was at the end of last season, you don't get your full asking price from him. I reckon we go in and say, here's 50 million quid. If we win the Champions League, there's another 10 million quid. That's the tip top of what you'd be paying for that man, especially with the so-called bad egg in him. If they are like, no, we're holding firm for 70 million, keep him. He's going to sit on him all day long. He's not worth £70 million by any stretch of the imagination. Like, for context, you could get Rodrigo out of Real Madrid for 100 million. That's 30 million extra for a Champions League winner. So that's what I'd be doing if you were to really ask me about that.
I actually think Rodrigo is going to be even less than that, to be honest. I was listening to a podcast and they were saying 70 to 80. So I don't think he's worth 70. I don't think we're going near it. It seems like 50 is our ballpark kind of targeted amount that we would like to spend. 50 is also being thrown around for Elanga. Look, again, who is anybody worth 50 million when we're talking about these types of players? Bar Jacob Murphy, of course. It's people throw these numbers around. It's a huge amount of money. Like, it's a huge amount of money when you think of how many times we've spent more than 50 million. It's not that many. Just with Pedro in his position, it's an interesting one. That might be why Eddie Howe is after him and was after him, Buemo, rather than getting somebody who, like Elanga, for me, is, I do think he's an upgrade on Jacob Murphy. Not a massive one, but he's an upgrade, even to the fact that he's younger and I would say he's quicker and just a little bit more impactful in terms of causing havoc consistently. Maybe not with output, but again, that's something that Howe would work on.
And he's Swedish.
Oh, Pedro can play anywhere.
He's Swedish.
Elanga is Swedish. He's buddies with Isak as well. So there's pros and cons of both of these. The one thing about Pedro is, now, I would be keeping an eye on what happens with Matoma, because Matoma is linked with a move elsewhere. Ooh. But with João Pedro, they don't usually play him up front. They found a Welbeck who loves scoring against Newcastle. Evan Ferguson is on the way back there. Interesting to see what happens to him. I take him at Newcastle, as I've always said. But is there enough football there for him? But they do, obviously, Brighton could spare him because they do play him on the right frequently, but they also have a player called Yankuba Minta in their ranks, and I'm sure they'd be happy to give him kind of first choice, let's say, on that right-hand side. And if they got 50 million for João Pedro, I'm sure they'd take it. It would be about a 20 million profit for them at least.
Yeah, if they paid 35 million for 35.
Yeah. What about kind of going through the crack here and falling in the middle and going for Semenyo from Bournemouth?
He's £70 million. No,
there's talks of 70 for him. He's a very high price as well.
£70 million as well.
And he's also I think he tracked back the second least amount of times out of wingers in the Premier League last year. He's not an Eddie Howe player. That's a no-go.
No go. Okay, I'm gonna crash those.
And I know I think a lot of us are keen on him because we watched him tear us a new one this season. Like he was very, very good, but he hasn't been that good all season.
He was very, very good because Kieran Trippier was very, 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 very bad that day.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right. Yeah. So look, but I think this all just comes together to sum up the point we made at the beginning. There's a Premier League premium here.
Yeah.
And I think that should we be doing this for one player, maybe a marquee signing to go for this kind of Premier League big money transfer? We shouldn't be looking at this for every role at all, because you're just burning cash and not there just isn't value, I suppose, and value in the sense of smart recruitment, value in the sense of resale potentially, value in the sense of PSR, and every transfer is a risk, even if they are Premier League proof.
Okay, look, I don't want to. Let's not get into it now, right? But how much do you think we could get from outs?
Like just ballpark top of my mind, we might be lucky to get 30 million. Like Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff might fetch you some cash. A little bit less for somebody like Matt Target, but if we're only selling players we don't want to sell, there's not going to be that many people that want to buy. So
the cat amongst the pigeons. I don't think we can sell Sean Longstaff
for homegrown reasons.
Homegrown reasons for Champions League football. If we want a full squad, we kind of have to keep unless we sign Tim Krul and Fraser Forrester, which I can't really see us doing. Can't see us doing both. Can't see us doing both.
Yeah, okay.
We kind of need to have homegrown players, and Sean is one of the very few that we can say is homegrown. Don't get me wrong. Sean has his ups and downs and all that jazz. He's not a Champions League midfielder. The clubs that are linked to him are Burnley and Leeds. That's the standard of player that he is, unfortunately. But
I think it's down to Sean as well. I think he needs to kind of decide. You know, he's the message is quite clear. In the last 5 months of the season, he got very little minutes. And, you know, Eddie Howe clearly just doesn't see him as being able to make that impact anymore. So it's up to him as well if he wants to kind of, does he want to stay around, enjoy the ride and be very much a squad player? Or does he want to actually, you know, in his prime?
I didn't know you guys were first name terms of him. Do you know what I mean?
Hey, myself and Shawnee boy.
Sean, that. Well, look at
Sean.
He's going to Everton for £15 million, and it'll be in the blink of an eye, and it'll happen on the 1st of July, and it's gone because he's not going to be hanging around just sitting on the bench playing his switch too.
Again, it's down to some players are happy to do that. Look at Steve Harper, did it for his whole career. Do you know what I mean? So you never know. It's a bit different with goalkeepers, but anyway, we'll move on because just a couple of names on this list that aren't necessarily Premier League kind of known standard value, etc. One player we actually wrote about on the irishmags.com. Yes, we have written articles on the irishmags.com. Is so there's one here called Magnus Akliush, who is a right winger at Monaco, and we'll talk about his price in a minute. There is a Greek player who's maybe more of a forward called Koustalas. I heard Brighton were also linked with him.
That's here we go today.
Did it get a here we go? Okay,
here we go. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a here we go for Brighton. So that's
for Brighton.
That's also another kicker for the João Pedro.
That's the João Pedro replacement.
Yeah. And then there's one other name on here that I just can't see ever happening: Kingsley Coman. Because even if he's available for 10 million, 15 million, his wages will be astronomical.
Yeah, and $750,000 a year or a week.
I just don't see this kind of thing happening. Alan, we'll talk about Akliush, because this is a player that's popped up before.
Yeah.
And we're all aware of him. He was one of the 5 players that I actually wrote the article, but I picked out 5 players who were playing overseas, specifically avoiding Premier League. And he was one of the 5. Had a very good season at Monaco. Did a couple of seasons put together on the edge or on the fringe of the French squad. I don't know if he's been capped, but was in a lot of the underage teams. It's an exciting one, but is this too risky for Eddie Howe?
I think this one might be a step too far in terms of the risk, because he hasn't had an outstanding season. He's had a good season, not gonna be wrong, and he looks like he's about a year or two away from being the finished article. He's a little bit has the blinkers on, where if he puts the head down, he'll run out the stadium kind of job, and he'll lose the head and he'll put a cross in and it'll nearly go out the stadium because they're hammering the ball that hard. He's just a bit raw, and it's not the type of player we're looking for right now. We don't want the finished article by any stretch of the imagination, but we want someone who's a little bit more refined, I think. Now, don't get me wrong. If he rocked up to Newcastle tomorrow, I'd be absolutely delighted because I was banging his drum for a while. But I think there was talks of them wanting 50 million euro, which is it's an awful lot of money for a player of his standard. It's 38-ish million pounds, shall we say, but like that's what we paid for Harvey Barnes. Yeah, that's exactly what it like. It's you'd be wanting the same output of Barnes for that outlay of money. So I can't really see that happening. But the other thing is we probably be able to whip out the old "I want curly hair too" song again because he has a lovely afro. It's cool as fuck.
Yeah,
and seeing especially Krisha when the club are tweeting out who had the best haircut of the season, because that's one of the most important awards.
Yeah,
I feel like we've missed a trick here with the Irish Mags Awards, which, by the way, at the time of recording, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to say this because I think by the time we release this podcast, the votes will be in, or at least the deadline will be passed.
Yeah.
So moving swiftly on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's an agreement that we missed out. Noni Madueke's on this list as well. Again, I just don't see it. He was quite prominent for Chelsea.
No, that's been linked again today. That's popped back up today.
Is this on loan? Is this on loan or is this
no? 45 million pound for Noni Madueke, which isn't the worst amount of money for a Premier League proven winger. But he
has for England during the week, not very well.
Yeah, not very well, and that was the problem. He was playing against Andorra, and he didn't exactly light the world on fire. And I'm going, oh, come on, mate! Like you are literally playing a bunch of amateurs. So
yeah.
Wait, hang on a sec, Al. We were sloppy and boring versus Iceland last night. That was the direct.
Luxembourg.
Sorry, Luxembourg.
The next thing about that's better. That's 90 minutes of my life I'm never getting back.
We're terrible. That's the difference.
Yeah, we are terrible.
This is England we're talking about. No, this is not an England podcast. No more England talk. Okay. So they're most of what's been thrown around for the right winger position. And we all have our own ideas. I do think, or at least I would be very in favor of a player coming in that hasn't been repeatedly talked about. Alanga, Pedro, again, Mbuemo,
what
this
about
is just very predictable. You'd like to think that there's somebody else in.
What about Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa and getting in, stealing and helping them with their PSO?
You'd have to spend 70 million on him because he is absolutely class.
He is class, right? But the figure that I've seen in several reports on my ticker is 30 million.
No,
because
that's Jacob Ramsey. That's Jacob Ramsey you're thinking of.
No, he was also a good player, but a little bit injury prone. Morgan Rogers would be unbelievable, and I think it would change so much of our midfield. He's a little bit of a 10, but I think he'd fit into the midfield 3 and Eddie Howe make it work. Between the fee and Villa's reluctance to sell them to what they'll consider a direct rival, unless they are desperate from a PSR perspective, I still think his numbers, his ability has been strong enough for them to still command a high fee.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if an Arsenal or somebody actually went in and were willing to pay 70 for him.
Yeah.
So it's a great shout, Christian, in terms of he would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I just think he's a little bit out of range for a few reasons. Okay. They're most of that right-sided kind of midfielder from the month of June. Now, look, there's loads of other names we haven't spoken about. As we said, we'd love to hear names that just haven't been mentioned. Again, we wouldn't be against an Alanga or a Pedro, but you'd like to just think that you'd just like to think that there's a whole lot of depth of scouting and researching going on, that we aren't just jumping on players who played against us last season, because that's a little bit short-sighted. Let's talk about another position. We'll come back to goalkeeper, which is a slightly predictable one. There's quite a few strikers on this list, and it's obviously well known. Look, it seems like Callum Wilson is going to leave. Obviously, Will Osula is there. There's been talks whether he might go on loan. Isak, again, it was a 40% fit Isak by the time where he got to the end of the season. Everybody knows Isak needs backup. Isak could do with competition as well. There's nothing wrong with that. There's an interesting name here who 2 seasons ago I would have bit your hand off, or even around the time we signed Isak, I would have bit your hand off for Dusan Vlahovic at Juventus. Now, again, he's had let's put it this way. Juventus have been they've been basically not as bad, but almost like an Italian Man United in terms of how they've been running. Managers in and out, terrible styles of football, underperformance, underwhelming, fans unhappy. Vlahovic hasn't really kind of been the man there. They've had a few different strikers come in and out of there. I think Moise Keane was there at one point. This is still a player who's in his prime years as a footballer, who I've heard many kind of journalists, podcasters rave about. I'm not going to admit to it. Watched him a whole lot of time. I've seen him a little bit for Juventus at an international level. I struggle to see why we would be a place that he would jump at coming. Never mind our attraction, but
no,
I'm not sure, Alan. But again, it's been continuously linked.
I'll tell you what he is. He's the next Alvaro Morata, where he just seems to bounce around top clubs, despite the fact that you're like, can he actually play football? Alexander Mitrovic starts for Serbia ahead of him.
Yeah.
That's the end of the conversation.
So also, bring back Mitro, Krisho. Bring back Mitro is the answer.
He's also got hamstrings that are as weak as. I was going to say something there, but I won't because I'll have to be edited out. But they're as weak as anything, right? They're as weak as an old elastic band, and he's had multiple hamstring injuries this season. And I don't want him coming up to the frosty air of the Northeast. He'll play one game and fall over, and there's 19 million euro salary down the drain. No thanks. Good luck. The one that you have, and I know you're going to move on to it, but I was kind of excited about it, but maybe I'm just getting excited about any bloody news, is your man Muniz from Fulham. I think he's fairly handy, this fella, but I don't know, would it be another one of those 30, 40, 50 million? Is everybody, like we were saying earlier, is everybody 50 million? Would he be 50 million?
Yeah, I mean, people see Newcastle and they're going to throw the big money around. Again, this is another one of these players who is playing in the Premier League, who has quite a decent scoring record in the Premier League. He kind of came in, and then I know Raul Jimenez has been in and out of that team and injuries and whatever, but Rooney's almost kind of elbowed him out of that kind of first choice striker role. Scored quite a few goals. This is another interesting one because I look at him and I think, well, Fulham probably see him as their future number 9. So why would they let him go for any kind of reasonable price? Equally, him knowing that, if that is what he's told, why would he come in here to be his second choice? I don't know, lads. I mean, Krisho, you don't seem convinced.
Here's the thing, right? And I think you go, both of us and everybody who listens to us has kind of read that I think Eddie Howe is going to have a plan B for next season. There is a possibility that he might have 2 sets of tactics, depending on, essentially who we've got available to put in the team. There might even be 2 up front. Who knows? I'm going to suggest that there possibly will be 2 up front, and we might see it within the first 3 games of the season, whoever we're playing. If that is the case, we can sell to a player that there's going to be different types of tactic. We're going to be playing 2 up front. It's not going to be all the time, so on. And you're going to be playing. You're going to get your games. You might not play every game, but you're going to get your games. That's where I think they're going to be able to sell to a striker. Again, Muniz is Brazilian. He's going to join the Samba boys. They're going to take care of him. So it's very interesting to be linked with Muniz and Pedro, both Brazilian, both young, both strikers, well, semi-strikers. Unless the journalists in England are just being lazy because they're Brazilian. But Eddie Howe must see something in these types of players. And to be honest with you, I think you guys would agree, Muniz is fairly handy. He's quick, he's sharp.
Definitely a player there.
Yeah, he's a young Callum Wilson. He knows where to stand. He knows how to nod a goal in. He also knows how to score a spectacular goal. So, I think it'd be a good punt.
He's not worth 40 million, though. I'm sorry. He's not worth 40 million pounds.
It's hard to argue with that when did he score 10 goals in the league last season? And he had pretty good goals per minute, I think, on the grand scheme of things. But like that, you're paying an extra 10 million because he has scored in the Premier League. That's just where we are. Yeah. I like it. I don't see it. That's kind of where I am. I just don't think it's a realistic one. And though it pains me to say it, here's one that I do think is more realistic, and I absolutely hate it. And if this happens, I just feel like why are we doing this? We already have this exact same player with a different name. Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Before you start,
tell me something good news. Tell me some good news.
So you haven't been on Twitter today, so thankfully Mr. Chris Waff of The Athletic and Pod on the Tyne has said that we are not interested.
Yes. Hooray!
Friend of the show, Chris Waff. I trust him, and that is good news to me. We don't need Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Again, like, sure, he could come in, and if he stayed fit, he could contribute some goals. There's no evidence to suggest it, apart from, well, he could, but there's nothing to suggest that he would.
But wait. Let's suggest.
Oh, dear.
Let's speculate. Maybe AD Howe could get a tune in him.
No,
you're like, no, straight away. No, he can't get a tune out of him. It's a terrible tune, and it'll make everybody cry. And no, okay. So
the only motivation here is because he might be buddies with Anthony Gordon, and they used to go out and dress ridiculously when they were going out on nights out, and there's no need for that. So I think we should move on from him.
Here's the thing, right? And I know we're going to talk. Let's just get down to where Eddie Howe's coming from, right? And he's all about spirit, camaraderie. The whole place is a family, top to bottom, all the guys. He likes them not so much to get on and hang out with each other, but he likes a kind of a family build and for them all to be kind of close. I think he's very, very much one of his main criteria, and you think it might be for all managers, but it isn't, is the character of the person. Their family setup, their background, what they do after work, so on. After they play football, I think he's really focusing on that. And if he is going for younger players, it's interesting that he would go for certain players of certain nationalities, that if they did come in, they'd have certain nationalities who are more senior that could help them out. So I think we really need to start kind of focusing on that. Like, kudos. I don't know where that transfer rumors come out of. It's not going to happen. It's another 90 million, like you were saying about Morgan Rogers. I don't know, like, where would that even be coming from that we'd go anywhere near him? He's like £100 million or more.
I'll tell you where it's coming from. Journalists not knowing what Newcastle are going to do and going, oh, he might leave. Newcastle need that position. Let's link them.
I would also throw in agent, I think.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's very easy to create a bit of hype when you say, oh, Newcastle are in for this player, to make other teams kind of wake up and go, oh, we liked him. And everyone knows, like you said, everyone knows Newcastle want a right winger. So if you want to put your right winger in the market as an agent, tell them Newcastle linked with them. All right, okay. I'm still not 100% convinced on all of these names. They are the names that are linked, which is fine. Again, we will reiterate. Fabrizio Romano did a here we go on João Pedro 2 seasons ago. Never happened when we signed Alexander Isak. There was every journal under the sun saying we were going looking at Nico Barella because Steve Nixon was spotted in Milan. He came home with Sandro Tonali in his back pocket.
Hey.
So there's also elements of smoke screens. And as we said, journalist talk, agent talk. The one player, before we move on to players leaving, and I think we're in the next kind of week or two, we'll talk a bit more about players we'd like to see come in from our own opinions. And we'll be looking to the Irish Mags for some suggestions. But genuinely, the first player I think we're going to sign is in goal. And I would be mind blown if we don't sign James Trafford after all this. The player has been talking about it on podcasts himself. Didn't name names, but has been talking about a move. I think he wants to move. He's in the England setup. Granted, he hasn't played in this international window, but he's there. He's a future England keeper. Frustratingly, he was probably available for about 25 million last season when he was still a championship player. Now he's had the best clean sheets and saves stats in the championship history. They're now promoted, which means he's technically a Premier League player. His price has probably gone to about 40 million. Alan, I still think we're going to sign him. I still think that of all of them, unless Mark Gahey comes back on the table, Eddie Howe is probably going to say, no, we need to do this. And the last game of the season where Chris Show's friend Pinocchio Legs, Nick Pope, was booted out over the Gallowgate. I think we really need to make this one happen.
Have you seen the podcast with Joe Cole, Jolien Lescott, and another on it? Where they're talking about Traff. They call him Traff. So it's Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole's the third one. So basically, Joe Cole and Ashley Cole were part of the England under-21 setup that won the Euros. And the three of them cannot stop talking about how good of a keeper James Trafford is, to the point where Ashley Cole said that if he keeps up what he's doing, not only will he be the best goalkeeper England have ever had, he'll go into the echelons of Manuel Neuer-esque style goalkeeper.
Wow.
They were waxing lyrical about this man, and it's not very often you hear 3 ex-pros all sit down and all have the conversation where they're all going, he's this, he's that, he's that, and it's just pure brilliance. Ashley Cole was talking about how they were in the quarterfinals or whatever cup do it. They couldn't break down this team. So Trafford essentially waited for the centre forward to come in and try tackle him, drop the shoulder, beat the man, played the ball out to the fullback who had gotten 2 yards of space and essentially moved the whole team forward. They got the winning goal from Trafford beating a man. The goalkeeper beating a man got them the winning goal. There's a reason Burnley want £40 million for this player, this man. There's a reason he's in the England squad ahead of the likes of Nick Pope. There's Premier League goalkeepers that could be getting in. I think Sam Johnson's still knocking about the Prem. He's English. He is the England number one. When, as much as I hate admitting it, when Pickford, who is absolutely quality, hate saying it, but he is so good. The two of them will be going neck and neck for that number one jersey for the next 2 years. Then Trafford will take over and it'll be his jersey. But he's 22 years of age. You will get 15 seasons out of the man.
Yeah.
£40 million, that is a bargain. I said earlier, I think you get it done for 30 million plus 10 million in add-ons.
Yeah, agreed.
It's a no-brainer. Onana cost £44 million to go to Manchester United. £40 million on a goalkeeper that's already Premier League proven, that he doesn't flap at crosses, which is another massive thing. He claims an awful lot of crosses, which I despise goalkeepers who punch and push crosses away from him. That drives me mad. If you're going to do it, go through the man, take the ball, and Trafford does that. He commands his area, and he's a big bloke. I do think we will get that man.
I am all wholeheartedly all over this. Yeah, I fully support everything that Alice said. I fully support if it is 40 million, go and get the guy. Just go and get him. He is an integral part and cog of the new Newcastle, the machine that we're going to become. If you could imagine, and I want everybody listening to imagine as well, Trafford, Livramento, Lewis Hall, Botman, Gahey. Of the back five, 4 of them would be starters for England, and we'd have the 4 starters for the England international team playing at Newcastle United. Now, let that sink in, because that's essentially what Eddie Howe is aiming for. He's aiming for a good quality Premier League proven English if he can get it, or Brazilian, because we love an old Brazilian, or an Italian or something like that. But or bringing in Swedish. I think it's Elanga being Swedish. Other than the fact he's a good winger, it has got a lot to do with it. He's like I said, he's looking at different combinations, the nationality, upbringing, married or not married, how young they are, so on, where they're going to live. He's looking at all those factors. And with James Trafford, this is the best start that we could have next week. The best start we could have. Even if it's 45 million, they should pay it. They should straight up pay it. 35 million up front and 10 million.
It's funny, Alan. Normally, Chris was a big fan of Old Trafford and not Young Trafford. But
hey! That's honestly that's never gonna get old. Never gonna get old. Oh man!
I do agree, and yeah, like I said, I think this would. I just said like I said there as well. If you know, you know. I do think this will be, of all the deals, this is the most likely. I think this will be the one to get done. And the one thing I'll say, lads. Queeveen Kelleher cost what, 18 million?
Yes.
And granted, people say, he's the best number 2 in the Premier League. But he played a shit ton of games for Liverpool this season and they won the league. And right. I don't know about the contract length difference. The English tax is obviously different, but that might help in terms of if he's 18 million, Should Trafford be 40, 45? I don't know.
Yes, because Trafford is a good goalkeeper, and
What?
Trafford has the potential to be a world-class goalkeeper, whereas Kelleher is at the perfect club for him. That is his level, mid-table Premier League, no higher. He has too many mistakes in him. Look at the goal that Isak. Now, don't get me wrong, Isak's shot went in at 700 kilometers an hour, but he didn't get off the ground while he was diving for it. I've seen him make too many mistakes for Ireland to say he's a world-class goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I'm just more of the sense of, if you're going to try and compare, well, you're like, okay, the potential is there with Trafford, but I suppose it's not to be an end all. For me, it's like if Kelleher, who put in some very strong performances to Liverpool, granted with a very good defense and a Virgil van Dijk in front of him, I do think that helps kind of regulate and go, well, if he's 18, we'll give you 30. Just see.
But Paul, look at it.
English tax is English tax.
If Newcastle were prepared 2 years ago or last year, right? It was 25 million, I think, they were going to pay.
Yeah.
Right, or something like that, right? He's done a really excellent season in the Championship, awesome performances, which is worth 10 million. So that brings it up.
Yeah, he's worth 35. I just don't think he's worth 45. But again, that's the way my brain works with money.
These might be add-ons that Burnley would be happy with, getting a bit of extra income if we hit certain targets, 30 appearances, I don't know, 30 clean sheets, whatever.
30 million and either way.
I was just going to say, it's a good segue, Alan. You read my mind, because also over there on NUFC.com, there is there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 players who've been this month rumored with a move away, and one of them is Nick Pope. Now, the rumored club for Nick Pope is Leeds, but it is not out of the question. I don't think exchange deals are a thing anymore for PSR reasons, but it's not unfeasible to think, well, Nick Pope came from Burnley. This big connection there. Nick Pope is still a very, very good goalkeeper, has kept us in it all season on many occasions. Just doesn't do what Trafford does. But are Burnley going to play that way coming in? They've made that mistake before. So you could see something like, okay, Trafford's going to come in for 35, 40, but Pope might go the other way for what, 10, 15? Yeah. I don't know. So it's not out of the question. But the other club here, Alan, that are linked with Pope is Leeds. And just basically, do Leeds need a goalkeeper? They don't.
Yes.
Meslier has fallen off a cliff.
He was meant to be the best goalkeeper ever, and then his hands turned into crisp packets for some reason.
Just fell apart. Yeah. So it's not unfeasible that Leeds would be interested in Nick Pope, to be honest. But I would keep an eye on Burnley there as well. Interesting. Krisho, Leeds apparently also rumored to be interested in not just Callum Wilson, who I think it makes complete sense that Callum Wilson goes to Leeds, to be honest, but also apparently Sean Longstaff. Discuss Callum Wilson, Krisho.
Callum Wilson, he's going to get a new contract. It's going to be paper play.
With Leeds?
No, he's going to get a new contract with Newcastle. Eddie Howe likes him. He's good for the team. He's good for the team bus. He's good pals with Jason Tindall. He's going to help with the strikers, the new ones that they bring in. He might even become a coach. Al, you can shake your head all you like. He's going nowhere. This guy, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we should cash in. I think we should cash in and get the 4.75 million for him or whatever it is. But
he's on a contract.
So we don't get anything for him. All right.
So Wilson is free. He's available now. He could agree to go somewhere else now if he doesn't sign a new contract.
I think we should give paper play deal. Keep him on. We need as many experienced people as we can for the new season in the Champions League. Wilson would be a good guy to have around, even if he doesn't get a game.
Yes, I do agree with everything you've said there, bar to giving him a new contract there. And if you listen to Wilson on a podcast a couple of months ago, he was talking about getting back into the England squad. Now, listen, he's not getting back into the England squad. It's just not happening. But if in his head he thinks he can still get into that England squad, he doesn't get into the England squad being our number 3 striker. He has to go to a Leeds or a Burnley or another side where he can get minimum 60 minutes a game.
I remember talking about something similar before. Like for me, one of my motivations here is like Wilson blocks a spot for a younger striker to either come in or an Osula to get through. We talked about this before, I think with Lascelles, even Target, where we wanted to see opportunities for the likes of, Alex Murphy, no bias here whatsoever, but you need these pathways for younger players. And if we sit there with Wilson, we had Richie there for a long time. We had Dummett there for a long time. They're just blocking the path for other younger players to try and get through. And safe, yeah, no risk to an extent. Great to have around, but I just don't think it does us any favors in the long term. Versus having someone like Osula and saying, right, you're going to get some game time. Because if Wilson hangs around, Osula is going to be like, well, what's the point? Well, should I just go on loan? So I think we just need to take a few more risks, to be honest.
Yeah, I believe so too, but I think there's going to be a couple of people that are going to be very frustrated with Eddie Howe. He really does. Not the Gareth Southgate.
He loves them.
Not the Gareth Southgate level of loyalty, but he does have loyalty for certain people.
He does.
Within the playing squad, and Wilson is definitely one of them. He's his dream guy. If only Wilson could stay fit and was a little bit younger, that would still be our number 9. He'd get a game every single game, whether he scored or not, because he loves his attitude, his training, and how he works with the younger lads. And I think if he could clone Wilson, he'd go and find a Wilson somewhere if he could. I don't know who that would be, a younger Wilson. It's not Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Not fucking Dominic Calvert-Lewin. No. We're not saying his name again. Okay, just before we wrap up, one other. Well, we mentioned Matt Targett, apparently linked with Burnley. Probably makes sense.
Palace.
And Palace as well. Okay.
That link to Palace comes as a caveat to a potential Mark Gahey deal, which I would not be opposed to.
Target being a left, I mean, I don't see how they're connected. Palace were also linked with a centre back at Valencia, Mosquera.
Who's the Palace left back?
Tariq
Mitchell.
He's excellent. He's brilliant.
And he's out of contract.
More plot twists.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay,
there's a lot.
Just really quickly, right? Just really quickly.
Yes.
Paul, are we getting Mark Gahey? Yes or no?
Are we getting Mark Gahey?
Yeah, just yes or no. Let's not talk about it ever again. Yes or no?
No.
Alan, are we getting Mark Gahey?
As much as it pains me to say this, yes.
By the way, I would love to get Mark Gahey. I still think he would bring so much. I don't think we're going to get him because I think he'll end up going to Arsenal or Chelsea or even Liverpool.
I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Chelsea because he did come through Cobham. But I think we're going to go back in and it's going to be another one where we'll give you 38 million, we'll give you 39 million, we'll give you 40 million, we'll give you 41 million, and then we'll eventually, we'll get the 45 million. We'll both say yes, and that'll be the end of it. And then they'll come back in for Target for £3 million or something like that.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes as well. I think I really do believe that whatever Eddie Howe presented those 3 Sundays ago or whatever it was to the Crown Prince PIF folk, they went, yeah. And how much do we have to offer for these? I'll leave that with his lads, but I think he's worked this, and he's left it with them. And I think our socks, underpants, my hat is going to be blown off in the next 6 weeks. I'm literally waiting for it. My stomach is sick with it because I think we're going to sign unbelievable players in the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's going to be astounding, everybody.
Well, if it isn't Chris Show, I think we're going to send you on holiday because I just couldn't deal with it here. It'd be too much. If we get to the end of the transfer window and we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin,
we can't go 2 years without signing a player. We are not allowed to be the richest club on the planet and go 2 full years without signing a player.
No, hell no, we won't go. Not a chance. Okay, we need to wrap up. The last on this list, and this is probably where, if we were to hope for some cash incoming into the club, Joe Willock, rumoured to be linked with the aforementioned Crystal Palace, but the one I think has more legs on it, which is Fulham. And both London clubs. He's obviously a London lad. He came through the ranks at Arsenal. To be fair, he's been poor this season. Now, he hasn't been fully fit. He's had fitness issues, but I just don't think he's been himself. I think probably fresh start. He's still young enough that he should have high ambitions to be a first-choice Premier League midfielder. Yeah. We saw what he could do a couple of seasons back when he really bailed us out at a very good time. Alan, do either of you have any objection to Willock leaving? If so,
nope. I pack his bags and I'm driving.
Look, the Newcastle project, the first part that it's got right and I think we can all agree on this, is the midfield. It's Shellington, Sandro Tonali, and Bruno Guimaraes. It's world class. It's world class, right? Willock doesn't have a place in that, right? And I think it's affected his confidence. As Al said, he's a confidence player. He's been injured. I think he's taken his bloody time getting fixed with those injuries too. But anyway, look at that speculation. And he's been bambying around the pitch like a gobshite for a host of games, maybe 40% of the games played last season. I think he should go to Fulham. I think we can get 25 million for him. 20. But with that, we might be able to get Muniz coming the other way. So we'll give us 40 for Muniz. We'll put Willock in. And so 20 million plus Willock will get us Muniz from Fulham.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
There is a lot of clubs interested. The outgoing players that we have are linked with clubs that we might be looking at players for. There could be a lot of wheeling and dealing happening here.
There has to.
There could be. And again, I think that the days of the player exchange deal are gone. I think rather than saying, okay, we'll give you 15 million plus this player, it's more you sign him for 25 and we'll buy him for 10. And everybody's kind of better off for the PSR reasons, etc. Okay. That's our first little transfer spotlight, transfer special. Come to a close. I do think it's all very early. I think there are going to be names that we'll discuss in the next 6 to 8 weeks that haven't been mentioned today or haven't been mentioned at all. That's what I'm banking on, to be honest. I want another Sandro Tonali. I nearly crashed the car when I heard about Sandro Tonali. I want another one of them.
I think we're going to get one where we'd be like, we're linked to Anthony Elanga again, and then all of a sudden it'll be Takefusa Kubo is doing a medical at Newcastle, lads, and you're going, what? That wasn't mentioned once. What are you talking about?
That's good.
Yes, that's what we want. We want something.
Bakayoko.
Yeah, anyone.
Okay.
Bakayoko. I mean, I was beating that drum before. We're still waiting for Chrisio's shout. Joachim Anderson to come in. That's any day now, Chrisio, right?
Look, it's part of the Joe Willock deal. So just get over it. Oh, hang on. Does he play for Fulham now? He plays Fulham now, doesn't he?
Joachim Anderson.
Fulham.
Did he leave? He left and went to Palace.
No, he left Palace for Fulham. No?
He left Palace. Yeah, well, he's part of the Willock deal. We'll take anything for Willock. Just get him out.
Oh dear. We'll be doing more transfer talk in the next few weeks. In particular, any new rumours, but talking about some targets that we ourselves actually like. And we'll be coming out to the Irish Mags community, to our listeners, to get some of your own suggestions that we'll profile on the show as well. And that's pretty much it for transfer talk for this week. One quick announcement from an Irish Mags perspective. I believe there's a notice out, Alan, in relation to... Did we mention that we're the official supporters group in conjunction with Newcastle United? The Irish.
We did.
I'm
fairly sure. Ted was on.
Yeah.
Just for anyone who is in our ranks, we have a meeting with the club in regards to this OSC and official ruling and whatever we can say about it. So if you do have any questions, get them into ourselves and we will pass them on to the club. Now, don't be coming in with ridiculous questions because we just won't ask them. If you have any legit questions, get them into us. We have a meeting with the club next week. I don't remember the day because I'm a disaster, so don't worry about that. But it's some stage next week. So get them in and we will get them over to the club as quick as we can. This is all in relation to us being the official Irish Supporters Club. So just remember that. We're amazing.
Love that. And also next week, we will be revealing the results of our Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year awards. You may remember we did this last season. We had the privilege of meeting Anthony Gordon and Tino Livramento, who won both of those. This year, slightly different format. The Player and Young Player of the Year that are voted by the Irish Mags group and who win those awards will be recording a video for us this time around, specific for the Irish Mags. And I know who I voted for, but again, we're not going to go with spoilers. We'll discuss all
your
of that.
Your boyfriend. You're basically dream boyfriend.
I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble.
Also, it wasn't you that spelled Alexander wrong on the form, was it?
Also, it wasn't me that spelled Alexander wrong. I mean, it was some chairman of the Irish Mags. That's all I know. I mean, we'll never know who that is, but some other guy.
Gobshite getting the TV.
And the fact that I did review the form and submit the very first vote, and I still didn't even spot it, shows you the journalist I'm going to become. Right, on that bombshell, that does bring episode 79 of the Irish Mags Show to a close. Check out all our socials and theirishmags.com for all the latest updates. As we said, we'll be back next week to talk about all those lovely things and transfers and silly season and much more. So until then, Chris Show, Alan, thank you very much for tuning in. Sorry, for joining me, and to the listeners for tuning in. And as usual, we'll be back for more Irish Magnus next week. So, how are the lads? Slán, go full. And we'll see you all very soon.
Slán a bhaile.
Slán lads. Good luck.